Meanwhile, Amnesty International has accused wealthy countries of showing an absence of leadership in the crisis. In its annual report, the humanitarian organization says just 10 countries are sheltering 56% of the world's refugees, and they're among the poorest nations. Amnesty is proposing that the burden of hosting refugees is shared fairly according to each country's landmass, wealth and current population. There are currently about 21 million refugees in the world. Amnesty says it's time for a new plan to deal with the refugee crisis.
Leaders have failed us. We now need to have a plan B, and our plan B essentially is to say that there has to be a new system of global responsibility sharing. We cannot expect 30 countries to, there's 200 countries or so in the world, you cannot expect 30 countries of which 10 of them are bearing more than 50% of the responsibility. If we just share this out, say 60 to 90 countries share the responsibility, we could be in a very different situation. It's a big problem, but it's a very solvable problem.
Let's get you more on that now. CCTV's Jack Parrock is standing by from Brussels. Jack, first off, there was a rather huge upswing in the number of migrants seeking to reach Europe on Monday. Why is this, and what more can you tell us about the rescue operations?
Well, the reason is that the conditions in the refugee camps are getting worse, and essentially the people are still continuing to try to reach Europe, most of them leaving from the Libyan coastline, hoping to reach Italy. So we heard from European navies and NGO rescue ships that they saved just over 6,000 people in one day alone, but that 9 people died on Monday in that single day. So it's a pretty interesting window into a single day in the rescue operations in the Mediterranean Sea, 3 years after the original Lampedusa crisis. If you might remember that 3 years ago on October the 3rd, 500 people died off the coast of the Italian island of Lampedusa. And that was when the world really kind of woke up to the refugee and migrant crisis that was happening in the Mediterranean. And obviously it's got progressively worse, and lots more people have been coming across the sea in those 3 years. We understand that this year 132,000 people have made it to Italy, which is the same number in the same period as last year. So it shows that the refugee and migrant crisis of those trying to reach Europe, mainly from sub-Saharan Africa now, is not slowing down.
So, Jack, turning to the report by Amnesty International, wealthy countries are being accused of not doing enough in terms of sharing the burden of refugees globally. Is this an accurate assessment?
Well, according to Amnesty, for sure, they believe that these 10 countries that are hosting over half of the world's refugees simply can't sustain it, and that the Secretary General of Amnesty says that the countries that could host the most are actually hosting the fewest. So what's interesting actually about these 10 countries is where they're from. The first 5 are Middle Eastern countries and South Asian countries: Jordan, Turkey, Pakistan, Lebanon and Iran. And the second 5 of the top 10 are African countries: Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda, the Democratic Republic of Congo and Chad. These countries are some of the poorest countries in the world and are really struggling with these high numbers of refugees and these large refugee camps on their territories. So the UNHCR says there's just over 21 million refugees in the world. And they basically say that the main causes are the conflicts in Syria, Afghanistan, Burundi and South Sudan. So while the Amnesty is calling on countries to try to take more refugees, to do their bit, more countries like in the European Union, specifically countries like the United Kingdom, etc., those countries will be saying that what they're trying to do is resolve conflicts to prevent people from trying to leave.
All right, Jack Parrock joining us live in Brussels. Many thanks, Jack.